Welcome to the Practice Podcast, a show created by lawyers to help lawyers in life and business without all the complicated lawyer language. Let's welcome Bast Amron founders and your hosts, Jeff Bast and Brett Amron.
Today we have a very special guest on the podcast. We have Alex Gertsburg joining us all the way from lovely and beautiful Cleveland, Ohio. Alex is an attorney. He's been practicing in Cleveland area for 22 years, but he spent the beginning of his career in two large regional business law firms. And then he spent another 10 years, give or take, as the general counsel to a telecommunications company. He also spent 10 years in the Army, including a tour in Iraq. Thank you for your service back in 2003. But today he is the founder and a managing partner of Gertsburg Licata, which is a business and advisory firm handling a variety of business transactions, litigation, and regulatory matters. So we are really excited to have Alex here. Welcome, Alex.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Welcome, Alex. Thanks for being here. And as Jeff said, thank you for your service. We appreciate it very much.
On that topic, Alex, did you do your service after law school? Were you a practicing lawyer and then you joined the Army?
I was an ROTC from 93 to 97 and then did about 7 years after that. So I tend to count the ROTC years in my total service because
yeah,
I could have just kept partying with my friends in college and I didn't. I went to PT every morning at 6 a.m. I did my cadet time. The purists would probably say that shouldn't count, but I say it counts.
Well, in this room or in this...
We'll count it.
Yeah.
That stuff is so interesting to me. And there's among us here, we have one of three who sacrificed and gave themselves in the service of the country. So just talk briefly about that and tell us about, what you did and what your tour was. And
yeah. So what led me to the Army life is not that glamorous. I wasn't born in this country. I was born in Moldova, which do you guys know where Moldova is?
No.
Nobody knows where Moldova is. It's nestled. It's this little sliver of a country nestled between Russia, Romania, and the Ukraine. And so when we came here, it was 1979. We had no money. We kept having no money through my entire childhood. So when my dad was an entrepreneur as well, but when college came around, I had minimal funds to go to school with. And so somehow I won an Army ROTC scholarship, got a free ride to college. That required then the Army time and afterwards. And so from 97, in 97, I was commissioned as a second lieutenant. I thought the transportation corps might be fun because it seemed like a lot of road trips. Joined that and went to officer basic school. From 97 to 2003, I was a platoon leader in an Army Reserve unit in Akron, Ohio, leading training convoys all over the country, but mostly in Northeast Ohio, doing my 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks in the summertime. And then January of 2003, my unit got called up to go to Iraq. I spent a year there and I led convoys in Iraq. It was generally about a year's worth of the same mission going from, we were stationed in base that straddled Kuwait and Iraq. It was called Camp Navstar. And it was a 5-day mission with some exceptions that took us from there to Camp Doha in Kuwait, up to Baghdad, and then back over a 5-day period. Anywhere from 60 to 160 soldiers carrying supplies and ammo, things like that.
Wow.
It was fun. It was interesting. When you're in your 20s and you don't know anything, it's a really great way to grow up pretty quickly.
If you recall that feeling when you got the call that we're getting called up and we're going over.
It's interesting, Brett. I really didn't want to go. I'm a little bit ashamed to admit it to this day, but if I'm going to be totally honest and candid with you guys and with your audience, I had just started in 2003. I had just started a new job with my second law firm, Calfee, Halter, and Griswold in Cleveland. Really great law firm. Increased my salary substantially, and it was already pretty good. And I was just happy practicing law and litigating and doing my thing. And so I really I just saw it selfishly as being really disruptive. And I had just gotten engaged. And so I don't know, just I really wasn't emotionally and from a maturity standpoint prepared to just set aside my plans for my life to go to Iraq for a year. At minimum, I knew it was going to be at least a year. But I remember when we were getting ready to leave, and I was standing at the head of our platoon and with the other officers. And I remember all of the parents of our soldiers coming up to me and the other officers and reminding us that we were in charge of bringing their kids home, that we were the stewards for their brothers and their fathers and their mothers and sisters. That really weighed heavily on me and on the other leaders in our unit. And it turned around. You kind of snap right back to it immediately. As selfish as you were before that, or as I was anyway, the weight of that responsibility immediately hit me, and it stayed with me for the rest of the time I was there.
Wow. Amazing. I mean, yeah, I guess you realize it's as personal as it is, it's not about you. It's about a greater good. And that's really impressive. And I, again, thank you for your service.
Yeah, thank you.
We need more people like you who, and I think the fact that you didn't want to go is completely normal. There should be no shame in that whatsoever. I'm sure there are a lot of people that want to go, but the fact that you didn't want to, and did go is even more of a credit to you. So thank you.
Thank you.
So I guess the question is, what is harder, being a platoon leader or a managing partner? Who's harder to manage, lawyers or soldiers?
Oh, see, I was going to go with the analogy that in both cases, there's always bullets flying at you.
Yeah.
It's so interesting because this last year has been a real eye-opener for me. I would love to get your thoughts on it too, guys, because how long have you two been together at your firm?
We formed the firm in May of 2009. So
okay.
We're coming up 13 years.
We're coming up on 13, 12 and a half years, but coming up on 13 in May. It's crazy.
Yeah, guys, I've got a ton of questions for you though, but it's your show though. But for me, it's been this last year has been I feel like I've grown in emotional intelligence relative to, being a good partner. Lou and I are the two, equity partners here. And going from 9 years of just being the only chief, the only boss, right, to now sharing that responsibility and considering whether I'm stepping on his toes, whether he's stepping on my toes, whether we are aligned, whether we are sending the same message to the firm, that has been a really big challenge for me, having never had like a true business partner. So this last year, I would say, has been a real growth experience for me. In the same way, obviously, just the gravity of it is very different. But in the same way that year in Iraq was such a growth experience for me.
You had a solo practice for 9 years, and then you met Lou Licata, your now partner. You guys decided to form a firm, and that was a year ago. And how many attorneys did each of you have before that? I just want to make sure everyone follows.
Lou had, I want to say, like a team of 5 or 6. I had a team of about 15. And today we're at about 26 now, about a year in. And of that whole group, at any given point, about half are practicing attorneys. And we operate a couple other businesses out of this organization alongside the law firm. So we've got a full marketing department and operations, billing, finance. We've got an M&A affiliate and an executive search affiliate. So Lou and I met in EO, Entrepreneurs Organization. He's a longtime veteran of EO over here, probably about 16 years. And I joined EO 2 years ago, 2.5 years. We met there. I was going through a pretty challenging time at my law firm where I had more work than I could manage with my people. And we were just in over our heads. And we had lost a couple key lawyers. Lou and I meet in EO. I shared my stories of woe with him, and he said, "Tell me what you need, and I'll help you any way I can." And he did. He contributed some of his lawyers to some of our matters. And conversely, we started helping him with his. And I had a really good sort of younger bench of lawyers, and I had very few senior lawyers. And he had really phenomenal senior lawyers that he'd been working together with for a really long time. And so it was the perfect complement. And we started working together for a number of months on estate planning and on some litigation, on some M&A. And about 8 months in, we both realized that our leases were expiring at the same time. I said, Lou, why don't we buy a building together and move our law firms into the building and pay rent to ourselves? And he said, good idea. Let's do it. Started looking for a building, found it, started working on financing, started putting the plans together to move our firms into it. And then somebody just in the course of these real estate discussions said, hey, why don't you guys just merge? You're moving two complementary law firms into the same building that you're both buying together. And we looked at each other like, how did we not talk about this?
Yeah.
Right? And then it just became, and then it just clicked. And it's funny, we started working our own merger the way we work. We're both business lawyers, the same methodical persistence and processes as we worked on our clients' mergers together. And it just happened really quickly. And there's a lot of hard work, but it relatively easily, given how aligned we were on, talent, culture, process. And anyway, that's a very long-winded story of how we got together. That's how we got together.
No, I mean, that's sounds like you guys were made to be together and partners, not knowing what your practice areas are. How are they complementary? I mean, it sounds like you two are very complementary to each other. It sounds like your staff sort of needs were complementary to each other. But how did you feel like your practice areas would be complementary to each other?
We both had business law firms with generally the same practice areas within the umbrella of business law. So estate planning, business litigation, mergers and acquisitions, compliance, employment law, contracts, commercial law. So we had just that general overlap advantage of him having these great senior lawyers and me having this very talented junior bench. We complemented each other that way. The other thing, though, is Lou had and still has a really great international practice. He has a deep network of business people and lawyers in Asia. I work, being from Eastern Europe myself, I have a lot of clients that still do business in Europe. And we both did some things in South America. So our international experiences started to complement each other too. So yeah, it was just, we were both able to serve our clients together well using the people that we had. And the other way that we really complemented each other, though, was just as entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. And Lou is one of the best entrepreneurs I've ever met. Really forward-thinking, really progressive. You really need this in a partnership. Again, I'm curious to see how it works with you guys. My brain and my attention tends to be living in the future, not in the present. Lou manages the present really, really well, better than I do. So do you guys do EOS at your firm?
No.
No, we're familiar with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Familiar with it, but no, we don't use it.
In EOS, you need a really good integrator to manage operations.
Yeah.
I was a horrible integrator, right? Yeah. Just for me, I just really love putting pieces together for future growth and to a fault on present operations, right? To the detriment of present day operations. I can do it, and I did it for 9 years, but having someone who's really good at keeping the plates spinning, keeping the dollars coming in now and getting bills paid, having the right payroll, taking care of paying people the right way and managing people, critical. And if you've got both pieces of that jigsaw puzzle taken care of, magic happens. And I feel like it has with us.
To touch on that, so both of you obviously do some M&A work, and so you're familiar with how to put a transaction together. But it's very different when you're advising a client than when you're in the picture, so to speak. For those that are listening out there that are lawyers thinking about going into a partnership with somebody, or maybe they are in a partnership with somebody, or maybe they have clients who are, what are some of the things you didn't think of? Right? I mean, there's always going to be that thing or things that you didn't think of that either were really beneficial or things that you said, oh, wow, hang on, no, we need to address that?
Yeah. Well, the cobbler's shoe analogy is good here, right? You always tell your clients on day one, go in with your operating agreement, your partnership agreement, all buttoned up, ready to go.
Yeah.
Man, it took us like 10 months.
Yeah.
10 months to get that part done. So that's the first thing. Reality for ourselves. We did exactly what our clients say all the time. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
You know, we'll get there.
Alex, if it makes you feel any better, I think we're about the same. Was it a year, Brett, for us, or 10 months? Somewhere about that. It's the same reason I didn't name my first child until she was 1 year old. We wanted to get to know her first. No, I'm kidding. No, but I do think that it makes sense. Like you kind of learn a lot about the partnership during that period, and then you document kind of what you've already been doing in some respects. Yeah. But you're right. We give the same advice and then don't follow it ourselves.
Yeah, I would say that's the big one. But the good news is that Lou and I, because we are so like-minded and we're so aligned in terms of where we want to go together, it really wasn't a difficult process. It just would have been easier. It's good that nothing happened in the intervening time, because, families could have changed, interests changed, health could have changed. Gosh, I was just about to say you could have like a global pandemic hit.
No, that would never happen.
Not during our life.
You could have a disputed presidential election.
Right.
Yeah, but both of those things happened pre-merger for us. So
now you're in the clear. What could go wrong now?
What could possibly go wrong?
We have a lot of parallels in our practice, our styles, our strengths, and even the formation of our firm. Because Brett and I each had our own firm for about a year. When we formed our firm, he started first. It was his idea. He started a firm in January of 2008. I started my firm in March of 2008. We were bouncing ideas off each other because we had, just formed our own firm, and then we were sharing space together. When we announced the formation of our firm, it was the local bankruptcy bar retreat that weekend. And without exception, every single person that we told said, oh, we knew that was coming. Apparently Brett and I were the last to know that we would form a firm because everybody else saw the synergies, and it just took us a little longer to figure them out. But yeah, I think, and Brett and I we did a podcast on this very topic, the keys to a healthy partnership is besides trust and respect. And, one of them is complementary strengths and styles, the things that Terrible are at, and there are many, Brett's really good at. And so
how was that?
Oh, I'm sorry, I was supposed to jump in there. Yeah, no, all the stuff that I'm really bad at, Jeff's really good. No, there's a lot. There's like more that I'm bad at.
Terrible was bad. It was a bad choice of words, right?
No. Yeah, same.
Let me ask you this question, and I know this is your podcast, and you're supposed to ask the questions, but I'm just because I'm in it right now, and I gotta believe you've got a lot of listeners in the same place. Looking back on that first year, how did that first year go compared to how it ended up? Like, was it difficult? Was it challenging? Was it tough, or was it easy?
Listen, I would say it's difficult, but I don't think it was any more difficult than any other year. For us also, remember, our practice is heavily insolvency oriented, and it was 2009. So we formed our firms in 2008 and then joined together in 2009. And we just were like you, we were drinking water from a fire hose. And just having a partner right off the bat, just having another person that I trust, and same for Brett, that can triage or help you triage was just invaluable. Someone else that you can trust. Otherwise, you're just making every decision on your own. And if you trust your partner, you can say, "All right, you take this half, and I'll take that half." But there's
some benefit, as Jeff said. There's some benefit to having that person down there you trust. Just like EO, it's kind of like you find out that there's other people going through the same thing you are, right? And so it's super helpful. We happen to have very complementary sort of areas of focus in terms of our practice as we grew up as lawyers. I'm more heavily litigation, Jeff's more heavily on the restructuring and workout, although we both do the other. So those are very complementary in the insolvency world. It was just, I know for me, and I think for Jeff, it was just great to now have that person. We were using each other as that partner down the hall almost before we, made it official. but now it was official. And so now you just have that person down the hall you can go to and talk to and bounce ideas off of. But yeah, I mean, we were drinking out of a fire hose. It was great. It was crazy times in 09 and 10. And so it was great to have that as we were growing and refining our practice. And it was nice to find somebody who had very similar views on culture, which, as you know, Alex, is super important, and had a very similar, I think, reputation as well, that had built that level of reputation and practice. So it was nice to have that.
Yeah, and the work ethic and moral compass. I would say those are the other two.
Oh yeah.
You don't want to partner up with someone who you just think isn't carrying their weight, or you question their decision making or moral fibers. So yeah, it's worked for us so far. Good. Brett, anything you need to know, Brett?
No, we'll see how the podcast goes. So.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, and in a lot of ways we have a lot of parallels. I think I'm more the Alex and Brett's more the Lou. I mean, but in a lot of different ways. But we all pick up. We pick up where the other leaves off. In a great way. And it's not that it's like I think you said. It's not that you can't do the other things. It's just the other person's better at it.
Yeah.
And so. Yeah. I think that's how a real partnership works, and it allows just. In our practice, or in any law practice, I think teamwork, clients benefit and lawyers benefit from teamwork. And so, having a partner facilitates that.
Yeah.
In all respects.
Yeah.
And the trust component is super important, right? In terms of partnership and communication. Communication is key as well, right? Because things are flying at you a million miles an hour. Things happen, not just, we have, as a professional services firm, like you, we're not making widgets, So not only are we involved in the substantive part of the business and providing that service to the client, we're also running the business. And so there's a lot of things just flying around. And so it's nice to have, somebody else to help with that, do that on complementary basis.
How many folks at Amron?
We're very similar. We have 22 and about half are lawyers. Yeah. So it's about very similar stuff.
I was about to say we should merge our firms and keep growing. But.
Yeah, you want to come visit Miami? You should come down.
Yeah, I do.
They say that everyone always says that in January, Right. Come July,
Glorious out there.
I was going to shift gears a little bit. I was going to ask you about CoverMySix. It's you want to tell our listeners what's CoverMySix?
Sure. In the intervening period between the first sort of third of my career in business litigation at these law firms in Cleveland and being on my own, there was 6 years there where I was in-house general counsel for this telecom company called BroadVox. And I wasn't a telecom lawyer. I really don't think I ever felt like a telecom lawyer. But yet it was $100+ million company. They had over 100 employees all over the country, and they were a telecom company. And I needed to fairly quickly learn what I needed to know to keep it out of trouble and maintain its low risk profile. And so I started creating these systems around auditing the company to identify where its highest risks were, and then creating systems for eliminating those risks. And then at some point during that process, just this light bulb went off for me that there are only 6. One way to organize my audit of my company was according to the 6 plaintiffs who could sue my company: customers, vendors, employees, shareholders, the government, competitors. And then I was like, holy shit, there's only 6 plaintiffs that I have to worry about. And it's the same 6 plaintiffs for every company. Every company in America, to this day, I have not identified a 7th plaintiff. Every company in America has the same 6 plaintiffs that can sue it or investigate it. And so the audit for BroadVox framework for it was, 6 silos. And once we identified who the plaintiffs were, then we sort of reverse engineered our audit from plaintiff to claims that those plaintiffs can bring to the defenses that the company can assert and create for itself to protect itself against those claims and plaintiffs. So plaintiffs, claims, defenses. And that was the genesis of CoverMySix, which is also, if you are a military person or a cop, is something that you say or you hear in service, 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, right? Cover my butt. So the play on words and 6 plaintiffs created this trademarked CoverMySix product service that then carried into my law firm, which we started delivering to our clients who were not telecom companies. And then the forms and the templates and the processes kept growing with every CoverMySix audit that we did. And we just kept growing the service until we were doing these all the time. And we are now productizing it in lots of interesting ways that are really exciting. And it is now its own thing. It's its own standalone company. CoverMySix.com is its own website. And there's everything you would want to know about it is there. But that's what CoverMySix is.
Fantastic. And so you run that through your law firm, essentially. It's a product offering that your firm offers.
Right. So today, and we're working on a couple of things that are really exciting. But today, there's 2 basic systems of CoverMySix. One is a deep dive where we basically sue our company, our client, before the other guy does. And we use the same tools that a plaintiff would use when they sue a company, but we do it in a friendly way, right? So instead of taking depositions, we do management interviews, and instead of serving subpoenas, we do serve document requests on ourselves, on our companies, and we go through this process that involves research and guidance letters, and then we redo all their forms, and that process, depending on the size of the company, can take 3 to 6 months and cost anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000. And then we also have a small company version for startups and smaller companies under 20 employees, under 10 million in revenue, where it's a little bit more cookie cutter, but it's still pretty customized. But it's a lot less of that deep dive and more of you're going to get a new customer contract and a new operating agreement and a new employee handbook and all the forms that you're going to need as you grow your business. We're going to provide for you. We'll still talk to you and customize them, but it isn't going to be that deep dive that takes 3 to 6 months. The small company version can take 30 days.
What a great product. And, for companies to use and to feed, is it something that requires attorney time and work, or no, this is just one of those where, they hire the company or they hire the firm or they use the product? How's that work?
Yeah. So they hire the firm. We do everything for them.
Okay.
There have been times where we have taught other lawyers almost like a white labeling reseller kind of arrangement to provide this same service to their clients. That is the minority of cases that we do this way. Usually we're selling directly to the client. But yeah, we're doing all the work. And I do a talk called How to Stay Out of Court. I do it for EO. I do it for Chambers of Commerce, Better Business Bureau members and other trade organizations, companies. And even if you don't hire my firm, or even if you don't use the CoverMySix service, organizing your thinking around those 6 plaintiffs and then talking to your business lawyer that way. What are you doing to help me minimize my exposure to my customers? What am I doing to minimize my exposure to my employees, to competitors, to the government, right? Creating that framework, whether you hire us or not, is extremely helpful.
Yeah.
Most companies that do business outside of their own state, which is, these days, a lot of companies, thanks to the internet, aren't even aware that they may be sitting on this giant sales and use tax problem. Right? Sure. You guys probably see it. It probably puts some of your clients into bankruptcy, right? That's part of that government category, right? That's a conversation that businesses aren't typically having with either their lawyers or their accountants. But the government wants their money. And the longer you go as a business and the more business that you do in other states, the bigger that meatball grows. So that's just one example. I mean, if we can help businesses even talk to their lawyers better so that they can minimize their risk in a more organized way, that's a win.
Great. Yeah, I love it. I love, just ordinarily the prospect of litigation seems so daunting, but you just put it all into 6 small categories and it just makes it appear much more manageable. And I think a lot of business owners and leaders aren't thinking that way. I would say almost all of them, maybe with your customers. So I love that way of thinking and framing it, Alex.
Well, thanks. And part of it is the nature of our profession. We have gone 200 years as lawyers, generally working with our clients on a reactive basis.
Yeah.
Right?
We're that way about everything in this country.
Right. And part of that is that we're not cheap, and companies want to grow, and cash flow is always an issue. And so they're playing whack-a-mole with their legal problems. Companies are and CEOs and business owners are reluctant to pick up the phone and start the clock. They'll get charged by the hour. But when you're reactive and you leave all of these risks sitting out there to grow because you're kind of just putting blinders on, they grow. And the exposure grows, and then the pain and the distraction and the energy and the time that you waste, all of that keeps expanding while you're playing whack-a-mole on the problems you're reacting to.
Agreed. And I think not until a business owner or leader encounters litigation do their eyes open to those prospects. The cost of litigation is certainly higher than the cost of financial and otherwise.
Well, and I mean, from a business owner's perspective, right, I guess to play the just counter argument is, well, guys, you can't tell me that if I do steps 1 through 6 and I'm not going to be sued, that you can't tell me that. There's still a possibility I can be sued. What you're telling me is I'm going to create a defense for myself and limit the possibility of me being sued. So you know what? I'm going to kick the can down the road. I'm not saying that's the right approach, but I'm going to kick the can down the road and then deal with it. And we're sitting there saying, guys, come on. You're increasing your risk, of liability, of being sued and all that. So spend some now. And you're right. It's a line item. And so if they're on a budget, what do they take out? Let's reduce the legal expense now, because we're not focused on that now. Let's focus on, putting the business together and the expense associated with that.
Right.
So.
Well, and along those lines, Brett, right? Every business owner and most Americans understand and agree that they need to buy insurance, right?
Yep.
Car insurance, business insurance, life insurance, health insurance. It's just kind of an accepted understanding.
Begrudgingly accepted.
Yeah. I think if they think that same way relative to their legal exposure, right, they benefit whether they get hit or not, because they get that peace of mind. And what business owners usually don't kind of figure out, Jeff, to your point, until they get sued, is that insurance policy, might not be there. It may not be enough. It may only cover your legal fees, but not your settlement or your damages. There may be exclusions in there that you're tripping to eliminate coverage. But the biggest thing is it's not going to help you avoid the lawsuit, right? Once you get hit, you're on that roller coaster, right? You're in that litigation casino, and you're along for the ride,
right?
And so the insurance is important and it's great, but you need more.
Yeah, and it's not just cost. It's it's opportunity cost, but it's also the distraction factor. Anyone we all know this all too well, and probably our listeners too, but anyone that's embroiled in litigation knows that you're focused on the litigation. And when you're focused on the litigation, you're not focused on running your business. And that's, you're losing money out of both ends that way. Great stuff, Alex. This, I feel like we could go on for hours, but maybe we just might have to have you back on an episode in the future. But to our listeners out there, if you have any questions for Alex, we're going to put his contact information in the show notes, and check out CoverMySix.com for that amazing product. Really love that. And if you have any questions about this or something we discussed, or if there's a topic you want to hear, let us know. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please give us a 5-star review, follow us, share with your friends and family, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
For more information on this show and other resources, visit bastamron.com and connect with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram @BastAmron.